So let's talk about NAR and why most realtors don't understand how this NAR membership thing works, especially as it pertains to like the MLS. I just recorded a video on the MLS earlier this morning, and it's a cascaded membership. With cascaded membership, because all business is the broker's business, if you think about a real estate office as a normal company, right? Where you've got an owner and you've got employees, and the owner dictates exactly how things are done, right? Even though your salespeople, if you imagine it in the corporate world, whatever CRM system the brokerage uses, whatever other platforms, that systems for manufacturing or whatever, that's all at the discretion of the company. Real estate is a little bit different in that the licensing requirement that a salesperson is underneath a broker and has to be underneath a broker and is an independent contractor, commission only in most cases, not an employee, muddies the waters a little bit. But essentially, if you were to think of the real estate brokerage as any other company, I think you'd understand a little better how this works. So the difference is with a real estate brokerage, because the agents are all independent contractors, the broker's not allowed to pay for the tools for that independent contractor to do their job. This is why they charge you for business cards. This is why they charge you a technology fee. And this is why you get charged a monthly fee that is to cover these things. The reason for those fees is that it offsets anything that they provide to you. So if they give you free business cards, they're not free. They're expensed against something else. They don't have to make a profit off it. They can make a loss, but they can't give you the tools to do your jobs. They can't give you a laptop. This isn't, in a real estate company with an independent contractor, you don't get a company laptop. You don't get business cards. You don't get told what time to show up in the morning either. They can only dictate what the result is. So you can contract to say, I'll be in 5 days a week, but not what times, right? Maybe during business hours, you could contract that, but you can't dictate that you need to be here for a mandatory meeting. Nothing's mandatory, right? You're your own boss. However, when it comes to the MLS, when it comes to the National Association of Realtors, they don't see it like that. The National Association of Realtors has a cascading membership. So if the broker joins, then all of his employees also have to be a member. The whole company is a member of NAR because the boss says so. Now, in a normal company, it makes sense, right? You join, you have one CRM system. Let's say you use HubSpot. They implement HubSpot and they pay for every user in the company to have HubSpot that's in sales or service or marketing, whichever department requires the HubSpot seat. So in real estate, the MLS, all of the salespeople require the MLS to list properties. And as such, they need to have a seat for each agent. Problem is, because each agent is an independent contractor, that broker is not supposed to pay for the tools for that contractor to do their job. In the MLS is seen as a tool to do your job. So that cost is then put on the agent. Now, if an agent doesn't pay the MLS bill on time, the broker gets a nasty gram from the MLS saying, we're going to shut your whole office down because this person hasn't paid their MLS dues. So either the broker will step in and pay it. This is just leverage to get them to pay, or the brokerage will dump them from the license, offload them. That way it's not a problem. So anyone that's under the brokerage as a salesperson, if the broker is a member of NAR, every agent has to be a member. If the broker has access to an MLS, the agent has to have access to an MLS. One thing that they have done recently, and I'm reluctantly going into this, not to convolute the conversation, but if the broker is a member of multiple MLSs, then every agent that is under the broker's license with the state has to be with an MLS that the broker is a member of. So the broker always has to be a member of the MLS because the broker signs off on everything. If your license is under a broker, all business is the broker's business, and you can't do anything without the broker signing off on it. If whichever MLSs the broker is a member of, the agents can choose to join one of those MLSs or more of those MLSs, but the broker always has to be a member. The agent can choose the one closest to them. It would make no sense for every salesperson to have to be a member of every MLS. And although this is a fairly new concept, the same thing goes for NAR. If you are choosing to place your salesperson license underneath a broker that is a member of NAR, then you must also maintain your NAR membership. When you choose to put your license under a broker, you should look at which MLSs that broker is a member of and decide if that's the one that fits the service area for where you would like to sell properties. You have to stop thinking as a salesperson that this is your own business. You're a contractor in terms of you get paid as a 1099 and you can't be told what time to show up to work and how to do your job. They can only dictate the results. However, any business that you write for the broker is the broker's business. So salespeople really need to think of themselves as an employee without the restrictions of an employee and having to pay your own costs. An employer would, of course, pay your mileage. They would, of course, reimburse you for out-of-pocket expenses that were authorized. However, as a salesperson in real estate, you're an independent contractor as far as the sales aspect goes. And this is why you receive such a high split in terms of commission. In other industries, it's usually 30% of the profit or 15% of the order value. But in real estate, it's skewed the other way to where you may be receiving 90% of the commission. If the broker's providing business to the agents, it should be more like a 70-30, with 70% going to the brokerage and 30% going to the agent. It's money in your pocket. It's food on your table without any liability, without any risk. The hardest part is finding a client. If you have questions about licensing, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to delve into how the MLSs work or particular scenarios that you might be facing with your broker, whether it's related to the MLS, the National Association of Realtors, E&O insurance, or what have you. We work with brokers all across the country, straightening out their policies and putting in place operating systems for transparency in real estate.